What's up, guys? In this video, I want to talk about one of the most crucial and practical tips for winning Rook Endgames. So the piece of advice I'm going to give you guys is that in Rook Endgames, always focus on situations where you either have the king cut off or you can cut off the king. In this position, it's black to play and he went king to c7, so he's attacking our rook, and I want you guys to ask yourself, where would you move this rook? I was looking at this position with someone I'm coaching and he brought the rook over here, which is still completely winning. But if you guys were listening to what I was saying about just cutting off the king, pretty much you want to move the rook anywhere along the d file, except for here, here, or here. But if you move the rook to d1, you're keeping the king cut off. And the rook alone is not enough to stop our king and these two pawns from advancing up the board. So if we just keep this king cut off over here, we're going to have a really easy time. Even if you give black a bunch of moves, there's nothing he can do. We're just going to walk our pawns up the board and the king is shut out from the action. This is a position for one of my games, and I'm playing black. And based on what I told you guys, what would you play here? This is still a draw, no matter what you play. And I didn't play the move rook to f6, which is a move that I would recommend here because it cuts off the king. I went king g7, and I was still able to draw, but I'll show you guys that it got a lot more complicated than it should have. But the simple move, rook to f6 here, cuts off his king, and he can go f4 here to try to make some room for his king, but then we can just slide our rook over to e6, and we're still keeping his king cut off. And we have a very simple plan here of bringing the king all the way over here onto this nice square and putting pressure on his pawn. And this would have been a lot better than what I did, and I'll show you guys how the game went for me after not playing rook f6. Okay, so here I went king g7 instead of rook f6, and it's still a dead draw, but notice how his king now gets to a much superior position. And I mean, before we had a really nice plan of bringing the king here, and that's not an option anymore, and now he's the one who's kind of dominating, even though it's still a draw. Objectively, I have to be kind of careful here. I ended up actually losing a pawn. Let me show you guys the position real quick. Right now, his rook is protecting his pawn, but I ended up bringing my king up here, and he was able to drop a check in, and now I'm going to lose this pawn no matter what I do, because if I go up and he takes this pawn, I can't take this pawn here, or else I'm going to lose my rook. And if I bring my king down and he takes, well, I still can't take here, because now he's going to check me, and I'm going to lose this pawn. But I did do that, and I ended up just giving up this pawn, because a rook pawn with just one rook on the board for each side is a theoretical draw, and thankfully I knew that. And the way that's a draw is you just literally bring your king to the first rank. It's very similar to when it's just a corner pawn. You bring your king down over here and you just move back and forth, and then you bring your rook to the first rank and just move back and forth. So I was still able to draw, but it became a lot more complicated than it should have, and I went from putting pressure on him to being the one who's getting the pressure put on me. Alright guys, so here's our third and final example. So in this position, I'm playing white, and black, he drops his rook down and he checks me on a2. There are a few options with the king. I want you guys to think about where you would move the king in this scenario. So obviously you can't go here or else you get mated, and then you can't go here because the knight controls it. So the options are really just to go back or to go up to g3. Wow, those are really bad arrows. But what do you guys think you would play here? In the game, I played king to f1 because I don't know why I thought this would be safer for my king. But now if you look at this, this is the exact concept we talked about, where his rook is completely restricting my king now, and now I have to deal with trying to find a way to activate my king again. And also, another downside of this move is that it disconnects the rooks. A crucial move in this position is actually to go king to g3, because you're keeping your king active, and also you're not disconnecting your rooks, so you're keeping the coordination of the pieces pretty good. And also, the king can slide up to g4, where it's going to be pretty safe, and it's going to help these pawns advance up the board. In the game, after I went king f1, I had to spend a bunch of tempos trying to get my rook up to contest his rook. I essentially restricted my own king and spent a bunch of tempos on something I didn't need to spend tempos on, and that gave him time to push his pawns down the board. If I could summarize this video, it's simply the concept of restriction. In this specific case, we want to use the rook to restrict the king, and this will be a huge help for you in any of your rook endgames. And on the opposite side of things, you don't want your king to be restricted by their rook. So I hope this video helps you guys win some games, and if you enjoyed, then please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.